It's time for Twig. This week in Google, Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land joins us to talk about the new Amazon announcements, the new Facebook announcements, the new patent announcements. It's all coming up next on This Week in Google.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 114, recording September 28th, 2011. It's a big fork. This Week in Google is brought to you by Vast Conference, the ultimate in professionalism, clarity, and flexibility for your conference calls, all at a low price. For 2 Vast Conference calls free with no commitment, go to vastconference.com and use the promo code TWIG. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, which really is going to be This Week in Facebook, Amazon, maybe a little Google thrown in for the fun. Let's say hello to our panelists, starting with on my left, Gina Trapani of smarterware.org. Hi, Gina.
Hi, how's it going?
Going great. I'm going to be down your way in a couple of weeks. I'm going on vacation.
Oh.
Yes. I'm going to stay at the Hotel del Coronado. Is that a nice place?
Oh, beautiful. You must do the Sunday brunch. It's amazing.
Oh, well,
yes, the Hotel del, that's where they filmed that Marilyn Monroe movie, Some Like It Hot, I think.
Some Like It Hot. And also, one of my favorite Peter O'Toole movies, The Stuntman, was filmed there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to stay there, because I kind of have this image from the movies in my head of this classic old place. So, and apparently it's got a very nice beach out back. So
it does. It does.
That's
exciting.
That's what I required. Well, we'll get together.
Excellent.
I'm down there for CTIA. I'm just going to do one little thing, and then I'll be having fun.
Cool.
Also here, Jeff Jarvis, whose book is officially out.
Yay!
Yay! Public Parts. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And then he froze. You know, that's a good shot. You're going to get frozen. That's a good shot to get frozen on, Jeff.
That's a really good shot.
Let's just leave it like that. BuzzMachine.com is his blog. That's where he blogs. And, of course, at Jeff Jarvis on Twitter. Let's switch to camera 3. Danny Sullivan, who's reaching over to get his book from Search Engine. You wrote that, too? Amazing.
Just don't show this part here, and it's okay.
Yeah. By some guy. We don't know who. Search Engine Land is the great blog about all things search. Somebody said SEO is out. It's SMO is the new thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're both good things for people to be doing. So, you know, people keep mistakenly thinking that somehow social media is pushing away from Google, and I keep saying no. The pie of ways, if you think of the ways you're going to get traffic to your website, that pie has gotten larger. It's not like the Google slice got smaller. It keeps growing and growing and growing. It's just that now we have a big giant Facebook pie and a big giant Twitter pie, a big giant Google Plus pie. So, you know, pie for everybody.
You got to optimize for everything.
Yeah,
social media, search, just optimize. Get your piece of the pie. Public Parts just came out, Simon & Schuster. And actually, I want to take some time talking to you about that. Maybe, you know what we should do, Jeff? We should get you on Triangulation, our interview show.
I would be honored.
Let's do that. Well, and then we'll just do a whole hour.
We won't take up any time on it now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's germane to everything we talk about on this show, but you're right. I'd like to have a whole hour just talking to you. So we'll book that in. I'll talk to your publicist, shall I?
You can talk to me.
Also here from SearchEngineLand.com, the great Danny Sullivan. Welcome back, Danny.
Thank you for having me.
You've probably been as busy as we have. This morning we got up early, 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's 7 a.m. our time to cover the Amazon Kindle announcement. There was a Facebook announcement yesterday. Next week there's an Apple announcement. It's the season of the announcements.
It is. It's like I always joke about it on Tech Meme. It's what plays rock, paper, scissors. And right now Amazon crushed Apple, which had crushed Facebook before that. So, you know, it's probably due for Google to come up with something else before Apple can come in and stomp on them.
Well, as we begin recording, there's a huge story, which we will get to, about Samsung making a deal with Apple, and a significant deal from Google's point of view as well. In fact, it could really mean be bad news for Android in some ways, but we'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's start with the Amazon story. 3 new Kindles, kind of a smaller Kindle Classic. No more keyboard on the bottom. Hallelujah. The Classic, ad subsidized $79. Boy, are they getting that price down. Then in the middle, we've got the Amazon Kindle Touch, which is essentially a classic, except that the screen is touch screen, so you can turn the page by tapping the screen. That's a little more money, and frankly, I'm not sure why people would buy that. I guess because it's so hard to use a keyboard on the Classic. You have to, use the rocker switch to go to the letter you want, press click to highlight it. It's a little bit like entering text on a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox. And then finally, the big story, which is the color Kindle, the Kindle Fire. Big surprise, $199 price point. Does include 1 month of Amazon Prime. It is Wi-Fi only. A very impressive device. Looks a lot like a BlackBerry Playbook. In fact, that's probably because it came from the same people. It is about content. Content. And not once during this event did Amazon mention Google or Android or anything. In fact, we don't even know. We know it's Android under the hood, but we don't even know what version of Android it is.
I'll be eager to hear what Gina says about this, but she says that she's muted.
Oh, unmute yourself, Gina. Or maybe it's us.
No, she said on your end.
We've muted her.
My goodness, what is going on?
We didn't mean to mute you. While we're unmuting...
I was trying to do a clever segue there.
While we're unmuting, let me show the video, which is not muted, if you pull that up, of the Kindle Fire ad.
The instruction we find in books is like fire. We fetch it from our neighbors, kindle it at home, communicate it to others, and it becomes property of all. From Kindle, fire is born. A Kindle for movies, music, web, games, and reading. Kindle Fire.
Predictions. Let's start with Gina, since we've unmuted you now.
You can hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
This is such a great announcement today, and I'm totally fired up about the Kindle Fire. I think it's really, really well done. The price point is amazing. This is going to get tablets into the hands of people who are not nerds, and Android out there. And I feel like there are lots of knockoff kind of Android devices, but this is like Amazon's Android device. So I feel like this really makes Android kind of the mobile platform. So I think it's really interesting. Although I'm definitely going to buy one. Although I was thinking about all of my favorite apps on Android happen to be Google apps, because I'm just sort of embedded in the Google ecosystem. So I tweeted earlier, joking around, that if Google makes Gmail and Voice and Maps and the Google Plus app available in the Amazon App Store, I'll really love the Fire.
But will they? That's the question, right? I mean,
doubtful.
I would guess, although we don't know, that you will not be able to go to the Android marketplace to buy apps for this. You'll have to get it from Amazon, and it'll be the apps they approve.
Right.
It is a tablet, and arguably the next most successful Android tablet is actually the Nook.
That's true.
People have rooted and turned into a true Android tablet, but that's about the closest. This is a lot faster. The Nook is an 800 megahertz single-core Cortex A8 processor. This is the TI OMAP 4 running at, it's unclear, 1 to 1.2 gigahertz. Lots of memory on this, 8 gig storage, but Amazon was at great pains to say it's all about the cloud, baby. In fact, they said about 18 times that your books, we'll store them for you. We'll store your content for you. It'll always be available. And I really think that that's a backhanded slap to Apple. In fact, they even showed a cord. You don't need this either. You got Wi-Fi syncing. Jeff, what do you think?
What fascinated me most, there was some quote today that said that they don't see this as a device, they see it as a service. And I think that's critical. Steve Rubel said that, Amazon is selling a device so they can sell content. Apple sells content so they can sell a device. And I think that's not wrong. And so, the attitude here, I think, changes. It doesn't matter what the device is to some extent. I use Kindle software on my iPad. They'll still give me that on my iPad. This is just a way, as Gina said, to get it in more hands. I can't imagine why you would get this if you have an iPad or an Android tablet of any size, because it does limit it. It doesn't have the camera. You can't get to the Google stuff and all those things. So to me, it's it's for grandma.
Can you do everything on the iPad that you could do on the Fire?
I don't know. I think that probably the video media playing isn't as smooth. And the storage.
And you can't direct download. So, but I presume, I guess you could buy stuff or rent stuff on the Amazon store and play it on. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Play it on your iPad. So it's comparable to so in other words, it's not better than an iPad, except maybe it's smaller than an iPad.
It's smaller, right? So you can get the subway and read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And a lot cheaper. No, but that's the point. If you already have an iPad, do you want this?
I don't know, and I don't know that Amazon needs you to have it. That's the beauty of it.
They don't care.
See, that's what I'm saying. You know, I wrote an open letter to Mel Karmazin at Sirius years ago with my usual hubris, saying, don't look at yourself as a satellite company. Look at yourself as a content company. Put Howard Stern, everywhere, and let me get him as a podcast.
They didn't get it.
And no, but that's all right. But I think that Amazon does get that. I mean, we now understand why they have an app store. We know why they have the cloud storage, but it's not as if they're going to drive the business. The business is clearly not this device. This device is the loss leader. So they want to serve you content and store your content and sell your content on any device at all. So it doesn't matter to them, I don't think, if they buy this device. If you do buy this device, you're more tied to them. They can knock down the Nook and all that. But they're happy to be, I think, on your iPad or your Android tablet. Don't you think so?
There's one big difference, and Danny, I think you might be able to comment on this. In fact, Andy Ihnatko, who was at the event today, said, you know what, the sleeper announcement of this, it's not the hardware, it's this Silk browser. Amazon's got a new browser based on WebKit that will essentially, they'll cache everything for you in the browser ahead of time. And this is a very interesting play. This is something you will not be able to get probably on the iPad, or maybe you will, I don't know. But right now you can only get it on the Fire. It would be in Amazon's interest, wouldn't it, to put Silk on every platform? Danny, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm mixed. I got one of the Nooks, and I returned it quickly after realizing I started with the Kindle earlier this year. I had been hesitant on using ebooks because I kind of liked the idea that I had a book and I could do whatever I wanted with it. And then I started using it, and I got the Nook because I thought this will be an alternative to the Kindle, because I'd like to read in the dark and I'd like to be able to actually touch it and whatever. And I realized that the Nook itself, and I'll get back to the Kindle, but the Nook being an Android device really didn't deserve to be called that name. It was simply Android so buried under the hood that if you wanted to run any of the Android apps that I'd already bought and I'd already purchased and I'd already used on my other Android devices like my phone, I either didn't get them or I had to buy them new, and they only were from Nook itself. So
that's frustrating, isn't it? That is frustrating.
Well, and it's crazy. And if you're somebody who has, let's say, an Android phone and you've purchased some game or some application that you like using, are you now going to have to go through and purchase it again because it turns out that the Android Fire, or sorry, the Kindle Fire doesn't actually run it? Because not necessarily because it can't run it, but because Amazon perhaps chooses not to allow you to run it because they don't want to have anybody using stuff that's not in their own app store. And I don't know what that case is. What I do know is anybody who talks about it as being an Android device, until we actually see just how cross-Android-ish it is, if you will, I wouldn't necessarily call it that. It might as well be Amazon's own tablet. And with Android being very buried underneath it. The price points, I think, are great. I mean, I agree that if you've been looking for a tablet and you like the idea that you just kind of want to surf the web, and you're already buying things from Amazon, such as music or in particular books, which is still their strength, this can be a no-brainer. I mean, really, the $79 Kindle is awesome, right?
Yeah, I ordered that too. I bought both of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny. I bought two today. I mean, I bought the Touch and I bought the Kindle Fire. I want to look at them both. The Kindle 79 I almost wanted, but
I thought the Touch. I'm probably not going to use the Touch. I'm fine with the buttons.
But that's an interesting thing there too. Is like I take a lot of notes in my books. I use them especially for nonfiction. So I don't know whether the Kindle. That other, you notice they didn't stop selling the old Kindle, right? Now it's called Kindle Keyboard. So what I suspect
do they still have the big one, Danny? Because my daughter needs
the Kindle DX they still sell as well.
Yeah.
And I suspect what happens is, and I'd love to play with them, but I suspect that the Kindle Touch will have an on-screen keyboard.
Yes, it will. We've seen it.
So for me, that is going to be well worth the extra $20, to have that sort of thing. Plus, I kind of do like the e-paper in some situations. But, I mean, I love Amazon. I never buy music from iTunes. I've always bought it from Amazon for years now because I've been able to do whatever I want with my music and put it on whatever device that I want, and it works perfectly fine with iTunes. So as a way of perhaps getting people to start having more music, that's perhaps sort of a hidden type of thing, as well as the content that's all involved as well. I'll just be very curious to see what the Android experience is like, and if this is going to be a further fragmentation of it, because it is frustrating when you're, for example, using a Verizon phone and you find that you can't get the right app because your Verizon phone isn't supporting 2.2 or whatever, and they're up to 2.3 on something else, and it just gets to be a mess.
I think, Jeff, you hit the nail on the head when you described the fact, or Steve Rubel, that Apple is a hardware company making a hardware device, and Amazon is a content company. And, there's no GPS in this. There's no camera in this. The keyboard is limited. Actually, it looks a lot, in the ad anyway, it looks a lot like the traditional Android gingerbread keyboard. But this is going to be a superb portal to Amazon.
Content as service. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's not. I think they see themselves as a service company too with Amazon Web Services. We'll get to Facebook in a little bit later, but I think that you tie this into with Zuckerberg's view that he's changing the structure of media now, and that the primary means of, if not primary, but a key means of discovery and thus distribution won't be brands, and it will be less so brands and less so search. Sorry, Danny, and more so sharing. And so the question is, the interesting thing to me is, you look at Facebook on this, you look at social things on this, and social sharing. Amazon is, a little bit social. You can comment and all that, but I don't have a community at Amazon.
Well, it's interesting. It remains to be seen how much Facebook will be involved in Apple's next announcement. In fact, it looks like Facebook and Apple are kind of at odds with one another.
Right. So that's to me interesting too. Is that if you go beyond, the spheres of discovery of media, it was only brands. You had to go to the brand. You had to buy the publication. You had to go to the store, whatever. Right. Then it became search, and then it became links through Twitter and Facebook and all that. Well, that's going to, I think, go nutty here. And so search, social and sharing will have a big relationship in how you discover and view things, and then how you view them socially, how you watch them together, and all this stuff.
Makes me wonder if Facebook isn't considering doing a device that's social focused. Boy, wouldn't this be a smart thing for Facebook to do? Or maybe they should just be talking to Amazon.
Same philosophy. Why wouldn't Facebook, be in? But you look at what Google is doing, right? The fact that you can do a hangout and watch stuff together. That's social. The fact that when you now search on a topic, you can save that and start to gather around that topic in some ways. And that could just as easily be a game, though I wish I could get rid of the game notifications on Google+. That's another thing. I think the
by the way, I think the game notifications are gone, aren't they, from Google+? I think they went away. You still get them?
Yeah, I've been getting killed with them too.
I must have done something right.
I don't play games. I'm not a fun guy, okay? I don't have fun. I cause misery.
Actually, Danny, Greg Sterling, writing on Search Engine Land, says that the Android Fire tablet is an act of audacity that thumbs its nose at Google, even while using Google's OS in the background. It's true. They not only didn't mention Google or Android at the talk, but nowhere on the device does it mention it. And they even created their own browser.
Well, if you're Google, what do you think of this?
You think this is great? It's a really nice gift.
Google doesn't mind?
I think Google would love this the next time they get called in front of some antitrust hearing and they're told, you control Android, you do whatever they want. And they say, well, really? Because Amazon does whatever it wants with Android, so what are you talking about? This is a really good gift for Google in a lot of ways. Remember also, as far as Google is concerned, the more people are connected, the more they win. Because a lot of those people are still going to do searches. I don't know what the hardwire search is on that browser. I would be incredibly surprised if it wasn't tied into Google, simply because that'll be the perception of a lot of people who use Amazon, that I should just get Google, right? Amazon doesn't have its own search engine, so they're going to have to hardwire it somewhere. If they did cut a deal, which could be entirely possible, with Bing, which is really their only other choice, people may very well try to change it or go to it or just go to Google directly if they're there. Google still has a very solid brand. Plus, one of the things that Amazon talks about is, hey, you can get all these copyright-free books, and what's one of the providers of those? Google. So, you know.
So Google's in the background.
I don't think Google's going, oh, this is a terrible thing.
I mean, when Google open sourced the project, when they made the decision to make Android open source, they wanted this to happen. I mean, you always go into an open source project hoping that other people are going to use it. You know, the Kindle Fire, when I first got my Kindle, it occurred to me that the Kindle felt like just as much a buying machine as it was a reader. And the Kindle Fire, I think that this is going to be the best buying experience, like mobile buying experience out there, right? Because Google Checkout kind of stinks sometimes. iTunes is annoying because you have to sync and connect. But I mean, it's going to be so easy to buy things through the Amazon ecosystem. And you know, I buy stuff I rent movies and TV and buy all my MP3s like Danny through Amazon. I don't do it through iTunes at all. So I think that's going to be a really good experience. And what Danny said earlier about, you know, what defines the Android experience, you know, to me, the Nook was never really fully Android because there wasn't an app store. To me, the app store is the difference, and it doesn't have to be the Google, you know, the Android market. The Amazon App Store is a perfectly good app store, and in fact, I am gonna spend a little time updating my app in the App Store now that I know that it's going to be in the hands of so many people on this device. So, you know, it's interesting, you know, what makes something an Android device. And, you know, I hope that Amazon's lack of mention of Google doesn't mean, I mean, my kind of ideal hippie view of like how open source works and my hopes for this is that Amazon and Google are going to work together to make Android better for everyone.
That would be lovely, yeah.
That's the way open source works, right? If you're working on the project, then you submit patches back, and I hope that that's happening or that's
so
going.
So if you're Amazon,
it's such a fork, though. I mean, this thing is not even close.
Do you think?
Yeah, well, we can't even tell what version of Android it's running on. There's been dissent. Some people.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I thought that was clear. But...
Is it clear?
Yeah. Ours mistakenly reported that it was 3.1, but it's definitely 2.3. It's definitely Gingerbread.
I saw the Gingerbread keyboard with the predictions and everything. So, but that doesn't mean you couldn't apply that to some other version. So you're sure? We're sure it's 2.3.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're Amazon, what do you want Google to do? I mean, look at what's the negotiation like? Google says we want to hook into your customers for some way. Amazon says okay if. What is that? What's that balance like? I can't figure it out.
Well, one would hope that they wouldn't share anything at all.
Ah.
This is the rub between Facebook and Apple, that Facebook wanted customer information from Apple, and Apple said no way. That's what stopped integration.
Well, I don't think
Ping.
Google wants customer information. I think what they want is the opportunity to talk to the customer directly through search and its own apps, which aren't there. So how does Google?
Well, I guess you could have AdSense on the web pages you go to in Silk.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe they'll strip them out. This is the thing. When Amazon acts as a complete intermediate on all web pages.
Well, the difficulty is if Amazon starts going through and stripping out ads on other people's websites, then they get into issues.
That would be that'll be in court like that.
They can't do that.
No,
all right. So Google has that much of a presence. You know, it was very interesting. It looked like they've got deals with almost every magazine right out of the box. And Condé Nast, of course, heavily featured with Vanity Fair and Wired and GQ. They said that they would have interactive apps, special apps with video. Not apps. I shouldn't even say, because it's a magazine newsstand. They're not saying apps. It's a magazine newsstand, but these magazines will have video interactivity and features they don't put in the print.
Well, is it HTML5? Is it, you know, if you're a publisher now, what all do you have to do to get on Apple and Android regular and Amazon?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, what format are these coming in? So these aren't apps. These aren't standalone apps.
Well, it's not clear.
Right.
They have a store. Like a newsstand. They call it newsstand, I think.
I think the thing that, this may sound dumb and I hate to get back to books, but what concerns me most about it is I've been playing with the Kindle and buying more books through it. My ability to do with these books that I purchased and supposedly owned are limited. I can't export them. I can't give them to my kids if they want to read them. I can't put them onto another device. I can put them on any of my devices support Kindle, but only Kindle. And I've got an entire bookcase behind me that is full of books that I've had for decades that I've taken and I've shipped them across the ocean twice, the Atlantic twice, back and forth coming here. And now the tablet that they brought out, I think is going to further accelerate us all buying these proprietarily locked up books. And I don't know what happens down the line. One of the things I loved about Amazon was when I bought music, that music was not locked. It wasn't, I was able to get any kind of song I wanted, it seemed, and I could use it on any device, and I could take it off if I wanted to. I bought it. Apple eventually came and did the same sort of thing, where if you want to buy the song, you want it to be uncopyright restricted, you can do that sort of thing, and you can put it onto a different device. But people are building entire libraries of Kindle-based books, and I feel like part of me is like we're buying all of our libraries on 8-track. And I would feel much happier if Amazon gave me some long-term guidance as to what's going to happen with my books down the line. I had Stephen Levy's book where I took huge numbers of notes, and I can't even see all the notes I've written and all the things I've highlighted because his publisher or Amazon or the both of them have decided I've highlighted so much that it's a copyright violation, so they can't display them all, right? I mean, it's my book. They're my highlights. If I want to review everything I've highlighted in a book I bought in one go, it's crazy. So that, I feel, that's the biggest misgiving I have in all this.
Danny, that's
Amazon
a really
goes
important
further.
point. It's a really important point, I think, is that we're at this point, besides it being the obvious point about you're right about books and it's a holy cause, but also who's sucking up to the entertainment industry more, in what ways, to get more stuff, right? And I think that the battle for trying to go without DRM now goes the other way, because if Amazon or Apple or whoever has control of us, and they can hold back who's going to get the ability to stream stuff or put stuff up, we're going to see, I think, the return of more and more DRM.
Wow, that's depressing.
That is depressing.
See, this is why I don't play games. I'm depressed. Stop asking me.
It is, but I mean, like, I don't know if you can see my bookshelf, but I just cleaned through it and everything. And I mean, I've literally moved these books around, and I've gotten to that point now where I thought I can't buy any more books, not because I can't afford them, but I just don't have the storage. So
I'm very impressed, though, Danny, how they're all the same height. Do you do them by size?
Oh, no, it's very complicated. They're by favorite author and group of author down to. So the top shelf is all Heinlein and Peter Hamilton, and then you get down into some of your alternative history and further down. That's just the science fiction bookshelf, though. But so, yeah, they are by height in the sense that I always buy paperbacks simply because I prefer the size. I don't like holding big hardbacks, which is why I love the Kindle so much. It's why I love getting, one of the reasons I wanted the Nook was I wanted a small, light little tablet that I could read before I was going to sleep or something like that. The iPad is like I'm always holding it, and I feel like it's to fall onto my face. So it was worth it for me to get the Kindle, but I want a library I know I can depend on in the future.
I think, of course, we care about that, but I think that the average consumer isn't really thinking that far down the road. They just want to read the latest Danielle Steele and no?
Well, no, I agree with you, and I think that's the other things I realized as I went through a lot of these books, and I thought, gosh, I paid $7 for this paperback. I'm not going to get anything for it now. And in the past, I used to save it because it was really weird for me to throw away books or get rid of books. And now I'm going through books, and if I do buy the paperbacks, unless it's an author I really love, it's like, okay, that book's going to get donated or something. So that's part of my older mindset, which was books are something you hadn't held forever to, oh, it goes away. And that's the same sort of thing with music that I'm kind of going through, I think, with Spotify, right? Yep. It was, you bought the song, you owned it, and then you just like Spotify, you're like, why do I need to buy that music again? I mean, aside from the times when I'm rollerblading, I'm not going to have a good connection. I'm not going to download it, and I haven't configured it to be offline or whatever it is. For the most part, I can get songs without having to just, actually own them. So maybe that's, them damn kids, they're going to have a whole new world.
Culture's changing. And
definitely think these attitudes are changing.
Yeah.
Like my attitude about books has definitely changed over the years. I used to feel the same way, that I wanted my favorite books in a shelf in my office, and my identity, was kind of tied to that. I wanted when people came into my office to see my books and kind of know what I was about. But with the Kindle, I buy and I read a lot more, and I treat it a little more just like, hey, I'm reading this thing and I have these highlights. I love the highlights and notes, although that story, Danny, about you being told that you highlighted too much, copyright violation,
That's
that is
depressing.
horrible. I've never
Yeah.
run up against that. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But my attitude's definitely changed. I mean, if I love a book and I want, or if I go to a signing, an author signing, I'll buy it and put that on my shelf. But otherwise, I kind of treat them more just like magazines, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
I just think it's a different thing.
I do remember saying years ago, I'll never read an ebook, and nobody will ever want ebooks. And I think even at the time I said, my kids might be different. Well, it's happened really faster than we thought. It isn't my kids, it's us.
Yep.
It didn't take that
Right.
long.
Well, what it also says is that with borders gone, the
Yep.
role of the publisher
Yeah.
is, when I went to work for Advance, which is Condé Nast, they still own Random House. And I got all excited. I was going to work with a book publisher, Random House. My boss, Steve Newhouse, said, don't get so excited. It's a distribution business. We don't have relationships with readers. We don't have relationships with authors. We're just the middleman in distribution.
You're a romantic.
I know. And so, I just went through my publishing. I won't plug the book again, but my editor gave me great service.
Bennett
But,
Cerf. I remember Bennett Cerf.
what's the rest, really? So you look at Amazon, but the funny thing is we still keep on looking at things. I wrote this 5,000-word piece on Gutenberg as the original technology entrepreneur. And I wanted to sell it. I sold a version of it to Wired Germany. They asked for it. I wanted to sell it to a magazine. Couldn't find a buyer here, so I pumped it up. I was going to do a Kindle single. I'm telling the tale out of school here, but my publisher and agent got all nervous, and Amazon did too. You shouldn't have that up at the same time you have a book up.
Really?
I said, well, yeah, I should. It's going to promote the book. It's a disaggregated magazine article is all it is. No, people will come in and they'll buy it instead of your book because I think they get the cheap version.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, right? So, I'm going to put it up for free eventually, probably from CUNY, and that's fine. I wasn't going to make any money on it. I wanted to learn about Kindle singles. I wanted to do a Kindle single. And everybody, including Amazon, said, no.
Wow.
Interesting.
Does anybody think it's a little ironic
read it.
as the chat room does that we're talking about books and reading them on a device named Fire?
Oh.
Only if the books are priced at $4.51 each.
Ooh.
That's a bad moment, isn't it?
Little Ray Bradbury reference in there. You are a science fiction fan.
Yeah.
Figure this chat room of all rooms would find that out.
Yeah, I like that. I like the irony of that. I don't know if that's irony. I'm confused about what irony is. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. There is so much more to talk about. We haven't talked about the Facebook changes, the stuff rolled out at F8. We haven't talked about the fact that Google Plus had a 1,269% increase in use last week. And the fact that Spotify now requires Facebook to sign in, to have an account if you're new. Lots more to talk about. Before we do that, though, I would like to talk about a new advertiser on the show. We always like to welcome new advertisers. Yay! I have I talked about Vast Conference before? Conference call services from vastconference.com. I got to log into my account here real quickly, and I'll show you. One of the cool things that happens when you have a vast conference is you can name the conferees. I'll go to my dashboard. I just had a conference call. Here's the dashboard. Here's usage and so forth. We just signed up. You can see what your calls were. Here's a conference I had, and I'll go to the detail here. I can actually see who was in the conference call, how much time, their connect time, their disconnect time. I can actually listen back to them. We've got recordings. This is the kind of detail that you would love to have on your conference calls. Vast Conference makes it easy. You only pay by the minute, so it's very affordable, very straightforward. Vast will support up to, this was a small conference, you can have up to 300 callers at once. You'll get a regular dial-in number as well as a toll-free number. They're using fiber optic lines and high-end teleconferencing equipment, so you get a very high quality, better than VoIP quality. And their conference call management interface that you're looking at right now really is fantastic. You can manage users and callers. You can have question and answer sessions. You, of course, can recall as MP3s. Lots of detail about usage and billing codes. They've got a great customer service team, really great. I highly recommend them. And the pricing is very affordable for a regular call, toll number. And nowadays, with everybody having unlimited calling, that's not a big deal. 2.5 cents a minute. 6 cents if you want to use an 800 number call, and you decide whether you use 800 or toll-free. By the way, by participant. So if it's a your client, you give them the 800 number, or a prospect, you give me the 800 number. And then everybody you work with, you give them the regular number. Very easy. There's no commitment, no contract. You pay only for calls you host. And we have a deal for you. You can get up to 300 minutes, 2 business calls free. 300 minutes of calling free at vastconference.com. Use the promo code TWIG. So this is even better. You can try it yourself. 300 minutes free, vastconference.com. Use the offer code TWIG. I just love the interface. I love how it works. This is conference calling in the modern times, the modern world. Vastconference.com. Somebody's saying you should do a conference call with everybody in the chat room. I keep planning to do a hangout somehow.
Yeah, we got to do it.
Broadcast hangouts, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it. So, Google's upset. I'm upset. Microsoft made a deal with Samsung, cross-licensing agreement. With all these lawsuits, I don't blame Samsung for saying, let's just, we still got to deal with Apple. Let's just get out of this with Microsoft. But Google says, quote, this is the same tactic we've seen time and time again from Microsoft. Failing to succeed in the smartphone market, they're resorting to legal measures to extort profit from others' achievements and hinder the pace of innovation. We remain focused on building new technology and supporting Android partners.
Hey, Senate, go after Microsoft again.
No kidding. Don't bother us anymore. Look what they're doing. Look what they're... No, Mommy! Microsoft's extorting me. Actually, doesn't Microsoft already get something like $5 for every Android phone sold?
Really? That much?
I think it was a lot of money. Oh. So now they got a deal, some sort of cross-licensing agreement in which they'll get paid, I presume, for every Samsung phone sold.
So instead of Google paying them, then right. Samsung has to pay them.
And this is to Microsoft, not to Amazon. Not to Apple. That's still
right.
Still upset.
There are 7 Android developers: Acer, General Dynamics, Itronix, Onkyo, Velocity Micro, ViewSonic, and Wistron, all of whom pay money to Microsoft whenever they sell a product with Android on it.
Does Amazon need to?
Well, Microsoft hasn't sued them yet.
But I mean, is the same stuff there? What's the basis of the patent? Is what I'm trying to get to? Did Amazon cut that stuff out?
I don't know. Interesting question. HTC too, by the way. So every time an HTC phone is sold, I was told it's $5 to Microsoft. I presume it's something like that now. Microsoft doesn't even need to have a successful phone. They make money.
Yeah, that's funny. Did you all sign the petition, the White House petition to end?
Yes.
Software patents. And as long as I was there, I signed the one about legalizing weed.
Because you're from California.
No, I didn't. But I thought that was very interesting that that's the #1 petition on the WhiteHouse.gov site. And the petition to do software patents actually is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Doing pretty well.
If they had a patent on selling weed, then I think you can find that there would be more support on the patent thing.
You joke, but I wouldn't be surprised. As soon as marijuana as soon as it's legal, that's the very first thing people do is they patent various hybridizations. I guarantee you. And then let the war begin. Jeez. Happy birthday, Mazel Tov. To Google, 13 years now you are a man, and you saw. I kept, after all of these elaborate Google Doodles with Freddie Mercury, I kept clicking this thing, hoping something would happen.
Right, that something would happen, right?
Jim Henson, they got a Muppets eating Muppets. They got a stuff. Nothing. Was it just me?
They do have other things where they don't go nuts on all of this stuff. So maybe they were tired.
They're busy.
Maybe it was like, hey, it's our birthday tomorrow. We better do a logo. Okay, whatever you got. I mean,
there's 13. There's 12.
And
11.
if they did do a big, huge thing, then you probably would have had people saying, oh, Google doing a big thing for your own birthday.
Great. What about Martin Luther King?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I kind of like that it was understated.
I'm sure the 15 one will be pretty big.
But there's some debate over how old Google is.
Yes.
September 14th, September 27th. It looks like
September 7th.
Yeah. So
what happened was, and I did it's linked to off of our article on Search Engine on the 13th, but it was like, when is the Google birthday? And they're kind of like the Queen of England, where she has an official birthday and then her real birthday. And the official, what's that?
I'm just laughing.
Yeah, so her official birthday is this public holiday, and no matter who's the queen or the king, that will always be the king or queen's birthday. And then when they're actually born, they got a whole other thing that's happening. And
so they incorporated September 7th, 1998.
Right, and that's what they used to celebrate. And they did that for a long time. And then there was this thing around 2005 when Yahoo had announced that they had a bigger index than Google, and Google went crazy and got really, really upset about that. And there was like a month of back and forths. And in the end, and old timers will remember this, you used to do a search on Google, and on the homepage it told you how many pages you were searching through, kind of like going to McDonald's, billions and billions served.
Right.
They dropped that number as part of a post that they did saying, hey, we're 7 years old today, and since we're growing up, we don't think we should have to talk about numbers anymore, blah, 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 blah. And they all did this in conjunction with suddenly the 27th being their birthday, and they've held to that ever since. But I remember very much being tied into, we need an excuse to kind of make it seem like we're dropping this number so we don't have to have this fight with Yahoo anymore. We'll tuck it into our birthday celebration. So
that's bizarre, because, really, there is nothing that happened, as far as we know, on September 27th, 1998.
Avril was born, right? Singer.
Yeah.
I saw that on Twitter. But
so they registered Google.com on September 15th, 97.
Yeah.
They incorporated, we think, September 7th, 98.
That's just, and in fact, at the Google Zeitgeist conference that they had yesterday, Larry Page, when he was talking, he said, "Hey, we're 13 today, although we kind of debated ourselves." So,
wow.
So that's the date they're going with now, and unless they get busted for drinking underage, it probably doesn't matter.
How was Zeitgeist, by the way? What were the takeaways from Zeitgeist?
Well, it's similar to like a TED event, or where you get a lot of inspirational speakers that are trying to tell you how the world should be changed better. And Cory Booker from New Jersey was there, from Newark, and he was incredibly inspirational. There was any number of inspirational speakers, to the point where I just kind of felt like I needed a panel on why, when everybody seems to know the answer to everything, do we still not follow those answers? I didn't need any more solutions at this point. You're just like, why do we not listen to this stuff?
It's the old George Burns line. He says, "Why is it everybody who knows how to run this country is working in a barbershop or a taxi cab? How come everybody knows how to solve our problems is speaking at TED conferences?"
That's it exactly. They had a fascinating panel with Ariana Huffington and Ted Koppel, where Koppel was borderline grumpy old man, right? Like, social media, and yet he just kept scoring, I felt, point after point against her on, what, journalism isn't just going to go make itself. She, at one point, she's like talking about, well, we have all the reports, we have all the things, it's all going to be great. And he's like, how many foreign correspondents does the Huffington Post, run? And she's like, well, we have some people in Canada and the UK, and he really was this sort of old school journalist who didn't quite sound like the typical old school journalists who I think sometimes try to look for excuses. He just really felt concerned about the fact that, there's needs to be more regional reporting of things that people care about. And he was equally harsh on the mainstream media for going after, stories that they think people want rather than they need. So that resonated with me. But in terms of Google stuff, Larry Page at the end, this was probably a big deal for him.
You live blogged this event.
Yeah, he did this wrap up at the end where I think this is the first time he's spoken at Zeitgeist. I've only been to it twice. They've been running them for at least 7 years, but I'm pretty sure Eric Schmidt has always done the closing. Hey, you've been hearing all this stuff that doesn't really have to do with us. Now let's talk about us for a bit. And he talked many, many times about how excited he was about Google Plus, although he didn't really get into any specifics of what it was supposed to do, other than greater sharing, greater social, greater knowledge. We know it. Perhaps one of the highlights was really at the end of it when somebody had said to him, "What do you think is the big threat to Google?" And he took the mic and he said really loudly, "Google." And it was that
Google is the biggest threat to Google?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, and the point was that if they can't learn how to manage themselves and not let their own internal processes keep them from being developed or going on with stuff, that's what'll slow them down. And he had one quote where he said something like, "There are no big companies that have successful slow decisions," or something like that. In other words, you know, if you're sitting around trying to figure out every single thing until you think you've got it right, you're making a mistake. You need to make your decisions quickly and keep moving forward and keep learning and iterating from that. So that was really interesting. That was when you really felt like you were kind of, Larry was finally loosening up, and you were kind of hearing some things about what it is he's been doing in the past 6 months or so that he's actually been CEO and trying to revitalize the company and get them organized. And goodness knows they've had no lack of action going on there.
And the stories I've seen, Danny, I think from you and elsewhere, was that it seems that Larry and Eric's rapport is as good as ever.
Let's see. I got a little video here.
To make the world better.
Here is.
That's why I'm here.
Here's Larry.
Why I love technology and why I love my job here at Google.
Oh, he's not.
Thank you.
He's no Steve Jobs.
Yeah. And now he's introducing. He isn't, is it? He's very nerdy. That's Eric Schmidt standing up there.
Now, I've asked Eric to join me because he knows how to answer the really hard questions.
He's so mild-mannered. He reminds me of Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought, first, I think for everybody here, I really appreciate you all spending.
Here's the adult supervision. It really is. That's how you characterize it, Danny. I think you're right.
One of the sessions.
Yeah.
There were so many that I've enjoyed, and I think feedback from you is consistent. I know, Larry, you feel the same way. I thought I would read, while you're getting your thoughts together and your voice back, a quote from Cory Booker yesterday morning. But yet, we as Americans who drink deeply from the wells of freedom and liberty that we did not dig, we lavishly eat from the banquet tables that were prepared for us by our ancestors. We are too often just sitting around getting drunk on the sacrifice and struggle of other people's labors and forgetting that we're part of a noble mission in humanity. The first nation formed not as a monarchy, not as a theocracy, but as an experiment, an idea that a diverse group of people, that when we come together, e pluribus unum, that we can make a greater whole out of the sum of the parts.
This almost feels like a company meeting, not a public event.
And that's the only. This is the only part where it became that way. I mean, that's what's unique about this, or smart, if you will, is that they've brought in all these advertisers and big partners, and this has not been, you know, cheerleading and, hey, here's the Google products here, here's the Google thing there. There's some subtle mentions, and most of the time, the people that are talking will have a nice thing to say about Google, or there's been something that's been about with Google. Well, not always. You know, sometimes people have put some criticisms about Google as well. So, but, you know, you want to pump up your partners, make them feel special. You have them come to a thing where on a panel you've got somebody like Tony Hawk or Cory Booker talking to them and mingling with them and meeting with them. That makes them feel special. And this was the sort of the wrap-up where you do get that kind of company line where, you know, here's, and even then it was really subtle. There was no like, Larry's going to bring out the PowerPoint and show you where our projections are, and this is how you're going to do better with AdWords, and, you know, we're rocking your world with Android, et cetera, et cetera. And in terms of the dynamic, towards the end, when you get past Eric kind of stepping in at that point, and then they start having this dialogue, one of the most fascinating parts was when Larry had got asked about, you know, are things harder now or were they harder then? And he was sort of like, I think, oh, you know, it can seem harder, you know, now. And then Eric's like, but Larry, what about that thing when we almost ran out of money? And Larry's like, huh? And he goes, you know, remember, like, we almost didn't have money? Remember, we were running out of it? We had all of it, like the creative redaction program or crap.
Right.
That's what he said, where we didn't pay our bills for a while.
Wow.
Remember? And then, like, finally Larry's going, oh, yeah, it was harder then.
It was hard then, too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was sort of like, you know, you just like, okay. I mean, they clearly liked each other and everything, but Schmidt was very polished, and you could just see he's kind of wanting to get into the jokes, and sometimes Larry was sort of like, I'm just talking because I need to be talking. And then there were times he loosened up and he would say things and he'd give you a laugh, and you really, you know, you saw this sort of personality coming out it was nice to see.
That's neat. Google to government. Let us build a faster net. You saw that Facebook, by the way, has started a political action committee to promote social media, which strikes me as more to promote Facebook. I don't know. What do you think of that, Jeff Jarvis? You've spoken to Mark many times.
Yeah, it's, well, put it this way. Some of the folks there have read the book, which I won't plug right now, but I think that I know that they want to change the tenor and tone and substance of the conversation around certain topics, like sharing and publicness, like tracking and all that. Oh, aren't you nice?
Great book, great book. Great book.
I didn't say the name. I wasn't trying to plug it.
I'm just looking for my name.
It's in there. It's in there.
I guess this is what you do, don't you? You flip to the index.
Yeah.
Say, where does he mention me?
Yeah. I heard an old boss of mine got the book the other night, and that's the first thing he did, and he was safe.
Yeah, on pages 7 and 8. That's good. That's 2 pages.
Yeah. It's the law and then the port. And so, I think that absolutely Facebook has to see that they have to change, just as Google had to learn that they have to go with policy. Facebook does too, because they're affected by all this. They're affected by all this privacy talk, all this tracking and do not track talk. And not just here in the U.S., but certainly just like Google in Germany and the EU and all around. And I think that makes a big difference. And they have a hard time trying to recast that conversation. But they've got to be there. And, the other thing that really struck me after watching Schmidt testify when we were on last week, that the next day, and I kind of hinted this earlier, you really saw that the Senate is going after yesterday's war, which is search. And tomorrow's war is sharing and signals and all that I blather on about. And so this, it's like fighting Microsoft after Microsoft's going downhill. The Senate's way late to the party, way late to the war now. And so, the odd thing is you've got to go to Washington and convince them that the thing that doesn't matter anymore really doesn't matter. And maybe, I guess, hope that you don't notice what really does matter in the future. But in that area where it does matter, there's huge competition. There's gigantic competition for, look, Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they're all competing for, signals, searching, allowing us to share things, and a few of them on content delivery and discovery. So there's huge competition there, and Google does not own that world.
And it's important the government understands these kinds of apps. And I'm a huge proponent, obviously, because this is kind of what I do in my full-time job. I mean, the government being more aware and more involved with social media is a good thing, even if it's about Facebook promoting it to them to help protect their own interests. It might be just about them understanding, our elected leaders understanding how these things work. I mean, the fact is that this is where the people are: Facebook, Twitter, all these sort of social spaces. So I think that raising awareness and pushing those up toward government agencies is a good thing. Definitely a good thing.
Let's talk about the new Facebook F8 conference. Mark Zuckerberg spoke on Thursday. We had seen quite a few changes already to Facebook, the ticker on the right and so forth. And then Facebook announced new profiles, the new timeline, and stories, and, of course, apps interacting more directly with Facebook. In fact, I think what they really announced was, what do you call it, frictionless sharing? In other words, the apps just don't even ask you anymore. They just tell you.
It sounds a little bit like a zipless F.
Yes. With a tip of the hat to Erica. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this is the new timeline. You can turn it on with a little bit of a hack that was published in TechCrunch, basically establishing yourself as a developer. The subscribe button already made big changes. I've got more subscribers than I ever had fans on the fan page. And they kind of encourage you to go all the way down to when you were born. And they even say, hey, put a baby picture in there. So they that's me as a
Leo?
Yeah.
That is.
So what's interesting is this is an ego page, obviously. And they give you dates in here. This is the date I graduated from high school. This is the date what did I do on this date? Did not graduate from Yale. I have to. They don't give you, by the way, this is the developer interface. They don't give you a lot of ways to change this. For instance, I can't change this from graduated to ungraduated, dropped out. But it does give you quite a bit of it takes material from all of your postings and kind of arranges it into a pretty cool looking timeline, which you can then modify. I'm going to raise
a beautiful interface.
I think it's gorgeous. In fact, I love it. But I'm going to raise the question I raised last week, and I've raised on TWiT as well. Isn't this going to scare the hell out of people who just want Facebook to share pictures with family and friends?
But isn't that what every single time Facebook makes a big change?
Yeah, but this is huge. This is not just...
I know. My son Jake is worried that his friends will leave. He didn't say that whether he liked it or didn't like it. He was playing coy with that. But what he told me, I called him afterwards just to hear what he thought. And he's worried that if his friends leave, that's the value of Facebook.
Well, and that's what keeps people on Facebook, is it not?
Yes.
And the fact that there's where else you're going to go? Google Plus?
Well, that's what he said, too. But he argued that now there are more competitors. The Google Plus is the beginning of a
Google Plus feels like a Twitter competitor, not a Facebook competitor.
Yeah.
I don't think people will go to Google Plus to find college roommates and to share pictures with their mom.
See, to me, this gives a... The thing was, Zuckerberg made us all do his plain vanilla before, and I think it's a big change in his head to really get more designed and to let us have more impact on that. I don't know. My problem is I've been doing nothing but feeding Twitter into it for 3 years, so I'm going to look like I have no life.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing Facebook's been saying for a long time. Stop that!
Yeah.
I have to say, I am kind of tempted to, and I have, as you could see, fill this out a little bit, to put more stuff in here.
It's such a compelling experience that you go into it and you say, oh, no, actually, it wasn't that year. It was this year. And, oh, remember that picture? You start because you love to look at the pictures and the stories of your life, in Zuckerberg's words, which I thought was really interesting. I think that people are just so, want to define their identity and get so pulled into personal pictures and friendships that I think that it'll be initially a little, hey, what happened? But I think then you just get sucked into it. Less so with the ticker, but with the timeline, I think is just so compelling that folks will like it more than want to run from it.
The ticker is really a big part of the frictionless sharing, because if you go to your front page of Facebook, not your profile page, this ticker going by with people, what they listened to, what they watched, what they liked, what they read, and then you just highlight over it, and you can see the details of it. This is pretty impressive stuff, I have to say. This is really great design. But it's so much more complicated than it was. I just wonder.
It is.
Yeah, and the top stories where they figure out which
how do you know, this is a top story, and then there's more recent stories, and what's the edge algorithm that they use to do that? And it's a little confusing.
Well, I got to say, I've been... there's two significant things going on, right? There have been the change to the newsfeed itself, where they're giving you those top stories and everything else. And there's the timeline that practically nobody has actually seen yet, right? If you didn't do the developer stuff, you haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, nobody has it.
But I really use Twitter a lot, and that just kind of fit for me. And then Google Plus came along, and I found myself kind of jumping into it and being involved, both because I needed to understand it better. And for whatever reason, I kind of liked it also. And I turned everything off at Facebook. Kind of for reasons like Julia, where the privacy stuff, I just got done with it. So I fired up the fan page, and that was pretty much it. And every so often I'd post something there, and that was it. You could do that. And when they brought in the subscribe, and also since everything's all kind of locked down now, or not locked down, because I just assume everything I do on Facebook is going to be public at this point, that plus the new news feed or whatever kind of got me into it again. I'm going over there, and I'm like, wow, this is really kind of neat. This is, I'm seeing stuff from people that I'm not seeing on Twitter, not because Twitter doesn't show me stuff, but because I have actually different social networks in different places. So I'm discovering other content, and I'm really kind of enjoying it. But the privacy stuff, when they made the change to subscribe in the new news feed, all the old stuff, if you remember about a year ago when they rolled out yet the new simplified privacy controls and what can go here and what can go there, and I wrote a really long article about it, all that stuff immediately became outdated. All those controls don't exist anymore. They all went away. We got yet another set of commands and controls on what can you do, what doesn't do, or whatever. And
Danny, I think isn't it better that you get the opportunity, and I think that Google and Facebook are coming together here to make that decision whenever you share. Isn't that better than having controls?
That's great that you can make the decision at the time you can do it. But what was striking me was when I brought up the timeline, I'm discovering on my timeline that posts that people had tagged me in that I didn't realize or hadn't noticed because they move off so quickly were thrown up on there. Certain people were identified as friends. It like randomly decides which one wants to say that you friended somebody, whether or not that person was a particularly good friend, bad friend. You know, not bad friend, right? But I went through a time on Facebook that I think a number of people may have been through where you just like, oh, I guess I have to friend everybody, right? And so you're like, why is it featuring that person there? Why is it not featuring this person there? And then there was the thing that came out of, well, now you can tell when somebody was unfriended because it did the wrap up. And I actually went to and I like got rid of everything that wasn't stuff that I had posted myself, right? Because I hadn't realized I had all this tagging that was going on. I don't even remember the controls that were there. There are controls now, right? They're really nice controls that if somebody tags you, you can decide whether or not you want that to go out onto your wall/timeline or not. But I think in the past you might not have noticed that it would have happened. But I just kind of got struck by, oh, wow, yet again, I feel like the privacy sands just shifted out underneath my feet. But the difference was this time, I didn't blame Facebook. I blamed myself and anybody who was still using Facebook that expected anything to say. I started to do a write-up about it, right? Maybe I'll get back to it. But I was like, I don't want to rain on everybody's parade, but it feels like everything shifted around again, and really it's our own fault because that's what Facebook does. It's going to move everything whenever it wants to, and if you haven't gotten to the point at this point that's always going to happen, and you never really quite know what's going on with your privacy, and that you just treat everything publicly, then good luck with that.
It really is a stalker's delight. Look at this. Eileen just checked in at the Brick House, and not only did she just check in, but look, it's put a dot in the map just in case I'm trying to find her. I mean, this is stuff
she is your friend.
She's my friend, I guess. Do people know what's going on here?
Yes. But she checked in, right?
Eileen's hurt now. She's
no,
crying.
she's my friend. No. But I'm also subscribing to people. I mean, if Ariana Huffington checks in, unless she's careful, I may well see exactly where she is as well.
And then that's the weird thing, too, again, where the Facebook sands shift all over the place, right?
It's not just friends in here. These are people I subscribe to.
If you run a brand or a publication, right, first it was, I guess you could have a personal account. Then it was like groups. So then people would get groups for their organizations. But then we got, we can have fan pages. Okay, so now we have fan pages. And then groups change into something else. And then fan pages get renamed like pages. And then fan pages were positioned as a way, for example, authors to go out there and do something on Facebook where you could share to the public and not have to approve people. And now, so I've got like 3,000 fans, and I have like 400 people who've subscribed to me now, but now I don't want to use my fan. I don't know what to do with my fan page at this point. I did a post out there saying, hey,
I wish you could move people over. I wish you could
move me over on this other thing now. Or
they're building a tool to let you do that.
Well, they are. Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to take people who are fans and make them subscribers, and I want to take people I hadn't said okay to and make them subscribers.
I don't know if they're doing that.
It bothers people the least who just assume, as Danny did, that everything's public on here, and I'm only going to put stuff on here if it's public. But that's not, I would say, the majority of Facebook users. If you see this as a broadcast medium, like Twitter, you're probably very comfortable with
I think where it goes, because they don't have the circles that Google has, you really can't get to too fine a point. I mean, they have them now, but I'm not going to go back and redo them.
You can get to a very fine point. Look, now I can post
but
to
you got to go back and redo everybody to do that.
No, because so many of these lists were created automatically by...
Yeah, I know, but even so, you're not going to trust them. I mean, I think you're going to have 3 layers on Facebook. One is a group that you made, your family, you know who it is. The other is people you've friended, and the other is the world.
Yeah.
And that's what Gina, you talk eloquently about, trying to share and having concerns and all that. What do you think about this as a user of Facebook?
The timeline or the ticker?
Everything. The kind of sense of privacy and how you think you'll use it or not use it.
Yeah, I'm honestly pretty wary of the ticker. I don't see myself wanting to say to broadcast what song I'm listening to or like what I'm cooking that night or what book I'm reading. And I think this is just because I wrote at Lifehacker for so long and the site was so popular that I became a little maybe extra protective of my privacy because I had such a big audience. I had the privilege of a big audience, but that made me kind of draw in a little bit. So that's not something that I would want to do, but I could see how my sister-in-law, for example, has a close circle of friends, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and I can see how that kind of sharing with her friends would be really gratifying and would make a lot of sense.
You know, they have Google Buzz-style privacy issues in here, but it's so deeply buried that there will not be this kind of brouhaha. For instance, here's an example. If I share something with a list of specific people, the names of all of those people that I've shared it with are now available publicly to everybody else on that list. Now, that's exactly what happened on Buzz, but it's so confusing and convoluted that you're not going to see the same hue and cry, but there are absolutely all sorts of information leaks. This thing is riddled with information leaks.
Yeah. It is. You know, I found myself wondering, listening to these announcements, is like, what apps did I say it's okay for them to podcast? Because I give them the permission up front instead of during, you know, that slide.
Well, furthermore, we thought that the like button, for instance, would only track you if you remained logged into Facebook. Now it turns out it's always tracking
no,
you.
that's
wrong. That was like so
that's been
wrong.
Fixed.
Okay, correct me.
Not only was it been fixed, but it wasn't broken to begin with. And in fact, the article that was written was kind of like almost pedestrian. When they rolled out the ability for you to, first of all, like a page and see what your friends there, and to some degree, it's obvious that when you go to that page, it's obvious, I think, to you know, more tech-savvy people, but it's obvious when you go to that page that if the button is there and you're seeing stuff and these are all your friends, that Facebook knows you're on that page, because otherwise, how did Facebook do that in the first place, right? But there was a difference between Facebook has a cookie so that when you go out onto a page where there's also Facebook code, Facebook will personalize that page, as opposed to Facebook is somehow using that cookie to track every page you go to on the web. They're not. They can't. They can't track every page you go to on the web. They can only track the pages you go to that have Facebook code on them, which is a lot of pages.
Which is everybody, and Facebook's making sure that it's more and more all the time.
But
so
like
so let's make this clear.
Exactly.
Are we wrong when I say that I go, okay, I've logged out of Facebook on my browser, but I still have Facebook cookies on here, uniquely identifying Facebook cookies.
Yes.
When I go to a page with a like button, isn't that cookie collected regardless of whether I'm logged on to Facebook?
They've changed that, Leo. The story's up on the doc. And there's a journal version of it, too. It's confusing, and Danny, I'm sure, could do a much better job explaining this than I can. But they had a few cookies that did still record in the cookie, but they didn't log it, they said. They logged only one cookie, if I've got this right, to try to track false logins or some such thing that I don't understand. But even that logging, that non-logged recording cookie, they said shouldn't have been doing that, and they've changed it so it won't do that. Now, if you're signed out, the cookie won't record that you were there. Right, Danny? I think that's the change.
I haven't gotten that, I guess, because I wasn't that concerned about what it was saying in the first place. It's sort of like saying, I'm logged out of Google, but I go to a page and there's Google Analytics, and that Google Analytics recorded that I visited from an IP address. Or, more better, I'm logged out of Google, and yet I went to a web page, and that web page is showing me ads from Google that in turn may be targeted through Google's ad system. It's like it.
That's a good point. Every page already logs your unique one and only IP address.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff's there, and so to me, the concern wasn't, oh my goodness, Facebook knows I was on that page. The real concern is much, I think, better at how do I know what pages Facebook has tracked, and how do I delete that information? Right?
Yes.
With Google, you can go through, and if you're using web history, and you've actually used their toolbar, you can delete all that stuff. What you can't do with Google is cause Google to forget every page it has tracked you from a particular cookie, because they've done that through the ad targeting. But you can at least opt out of ad targeting altogether. But I think that's what we really need. Is like, hey, if you're collecting information as to what my personally identifiable account seems to be doing, then give me something like the Google dashboard and keep growing it so I can see what you've got, and I can clear it out periodically from time to time if I want to.
Yeah, the dashboard is Google's response to all this. I doubt you'd ever see anything like that from Facebook, though. You think? I mean,
I kind of agree with you. Facebook always feels like you've got to pull and tug to get the things that you want, because they've changed yet another thing again, and But that's the other thing.
I'll tell you the other thing that bothers me, because we've got to run. But the coercive nature of the Facebook environment reminds me a little bit of Farmville. Now, this Spotify thing is a perfect example. I don't know how they convinced Spotify to do this, but you cannot create a new Spotify account without being a Facebook user. period.
Is that anywhere or just in the UK? I thought it was. It doesn't make it any better if it's just UK, but I thought it was only something that was happening in the UK. Which is still not.
If that's the case, I misunderstood that. But in other words, I think that's just the beginning of this kind of coercion, where if all your friends and all the sites you visit, if you can only make a comment on TechCrunch via Facebook Connect, if you can only listen to music on Spotify via Facebook Login, this ecosystem becomes a lock-in to Facebook, and it becomes very scary.
Well, I think that if you're a brand or you're somebody who's running a product, why
would you do this?
I should be able to interact with you directly without having to go through some third party to use your products and services. That's just something you should have a direct relationship with your customer to begin with, and I shouldn't have to rely on a third party when a third party may want to do just to use your service. And I
agree. Of course, there's a huge value to the third party. You get access to 750 million users, but who knows what's
who are broadcasting every single thing that they do always. Who will let all their friends know they just signed up for your service.
I love it because I already do that. But I worry about everybody else. You know, it's like
I know. I was thinking the timeline makes
Facebook
like Leo's broadcasting.
This is my life. I love this.
Right, but here's where I think I believe that Facebook, if it can start today, would come out and call itself a sharing service.
Yes. But why did they make this pivot? Weren't they doing all right?
They didn't really. Here's the thing, Leo. It's positioning. It started off, you had friends, you shared with those friends, and people got under this impression that there was kind of a vault where I put my secrets with my friends. But of course, you tell people stuff, they'll blather it, and it's not. You're sharing with them.
But it was like real life in the sense, if I tell you a secret and you tell Danny, well, shame on you, but I'm sharing with you. I'm not sharing with Spotify. And I
agree with that. But
I think that whether that's true or not, Facebook certainly encouraged the belief and the feeling that you were vaulting your information.
I think that was their mistake. I think that they did that unwittingly because they said, we have all these controls, we have all this, and we have that, and they want to make people comfortable and secure. They shouldn't have. They should have said, this is a place to share. If it's a secret, don't put it here, you fool. Don't do that.
See, you're being very generous. I feel that Facebook knew perfectly well what it was doing and coerced people into putting information in there in a time when they would have been uncomfortable doing so unless they assured them, don't worry, it's completely safe and private here. Otherwise, nobody would have done it. Now times have changed, and we've got Twitter and we've got Google, and people are going, what the hell, I'll share everything. So now they're saying, oh yeah, by the way, you shared everything.
I take the point, Leo. But by the way, last week when we disagreed, people loved the fact that we disagreed. We didn't always agree, so it's good. We're disagreeing. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist that way. I think it was the change from being in a closed community of a college to the world, and that they architected something that was made for a campus where there are certain norms and understandings of how the society operates, and the world does not operate that way.
Right. Campus is a closed place with security, and your friends are on your dorm room hall and in your classrooms, and it's an enclosed. Facebook was about connection.
Yes.
Right. Facebook was about connection initially, and connection is a lot about intimacy. Right. And about sharing things that you don't want other people to know. And that's just kind of inherent in it. When the timeline came out, I really started to think about, public performance versus like who you really are. I'm going to publish my wedding pictures, for example, on my timeline because it was a big event in my life, but I'm not going to publish the details of my horrible divorce. And so I put out this question to my Twitter followers, like the person that you publish, that you write, the stories that you write in social media, is that the real you or is that the published kind of polished public you?
That's a great conversation.
And someone said, the person who I am online is the person my grandmother thinks I am.
Yeah.
Which I thought was such a great answer because you kind of, you edit things down and, don't get too controversial or too opinionated or hurt feelings. I think that's one of the risks of kind of living in public. And actually, I wanted to have this conversation with Jeff, of course.
Right. But Gina, wouldn't you say that what this does, the edging of more publicness, and please, chat room, I'm not trying to plug the book now, but it changes society.
What's wrong with plugging the book? Plug the book. Plug the book.
It changes society, right? So if I may use you as an example, if this was 30 years ago, you would have had a reason to be very cautious about saying that you were lesbian.
Right.
Right? And the consequences of doing so and the benefits of doing so, The equation was utterly different. Now, I argue in the book that publicness was the greatest weapon that gays and lesbians had against the bigots who forced them in the closet. I also argue that no one should be forced out of the closet. But the equation there passes to a certain point where you come out because it does challenge the bigots to say, you got a problem with this?
Right.
And then you come out because you can, and then you come out simply because you want to, and why not?
Right.
But the act of being public in those things, I do believe, leads in bit by bit, brave step by brave step, to more tolerance.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And you know, it's okay for me to be out of the closet to grandma now.
Right, exactly.
Maybe a few generations ago it was not.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
My gay uncle, may he rest in peace, Richard. My grandparents, to their dying day, well, not to their dying day, but almost their dying day, they just kind of didn't get it. And I'm very proud of my father that he made my uncle tell them.
That's neat.
And it was very neat because he had to be him. But here's the point. He had to be himself with his own parents. Even though he lived with Jay, the same guy, for 35 years.
He was his long-time companion.
Cognitive dissonance is a very powerful force in parenthood, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's important, is that the closer you feel you can get to your authentic self, isn't that a better world?
Yes. I do agree with that. Absolutely.
Since we're on privacy, and somebody's yelling at me in the chat room about this, but since we're on privacy, I want to mention one more thing, if I may, because I just want to say, ha, ha, ha. The Wall Street Journal was going wacky with all kinds of series about how awful companies are, what they know about you, and cookies are evil, and tracking is awful, and yada, yada, yada. Well, they just changed their quote-unquote privacy policy, which means that they are now going to attach your real name. And mind you, most media properties do not have your real name. They don't know who you are. They know your IP. They don't know who you are. The Wall Street Journal, because it's a subscription, has your name and your address and your credit card. And they're going to attach your real name to your browsing history without notice, consent, or control. Oh, yeah, Wall Street Journal, you're such a protector of the people.
Jeez Louise. That includes, by the way, All Things D, Market Watch, Barron's, Smart Money, as well as WSJ.com.
Well, I assume they'd already wiretapped it all anyway, so I don't understand the problem.
Hello, Rupert.
Bravo, Daddy, bravo. You know, I teach my entrepreneurial class. I always go through the first class, the business plan for Entertainment Weekly. May it not quite rest in peace. And may I rest in peace there. And I was going through the budget this time, and I saw there was this line for list rental, and I forgot about this, that of course, magazines sold your name and your address and the fact that you read that magazine openly. No notice, no consent, no opportunity to change it, no privacy policies, nothing. It used to be a lot worse. We have a lot more controls now, except at News Corp.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that ironic? Am I using it properly now?
Yes.
I hope so. I didn't go to college. I dropped out. Let's quickly, as we're running out of time, get to Gina's tip, Jeff's number, and my tool of the week. And Danny, just chime in.
Can we go to Jeff's number first? Because we lost Gina's video.
Yes, let's start with your number, Jeff.
Okay. I'll go to two different numbers, or actually three, real quickly. One is All Things D already has an estimate up that Amazon is losing $50 per Amazon Fire. Who knows how they got that number, but I find that interesting. Number two, Netflix has lost $9 billion in market cap, and there's speculation that it makes it now an acquisition target. At the same time, Google has reportedly offered $4 billion for Hulu, which I think all ties back into our earlier conversation about content and who can offer what to whom through what. And I think we're going to see an interesting war going on there.
I might point out that it was Gene Munster that came up with the $50 loss per Amazon Fire. Gene is not, despite the fact that he's a well-known analyst from Piper Jaffray, not notorious for his insider accuracy. One of the teardown sites said it was $188 per, based on purely components. So it's probably very close to cost, if not
a loss. Yeah.
We got Gina back or no?
Well, Gina?
Hi.
Speak. We don't need to see. We'll imagine.
Oh, we do, but we do.
It'd be like
you
this.
can hear me okay? I'm having the...
It's a great tip. In fact, the visual really can be me demonstrating, as Gina talks about this feature of the week. How about that?
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. So Google Plus launched a feature this week where you can share circles that you've made.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, this is really neat. So if you build up, say, a circle of great photographers or fantastic Twig guests or people who, basically your own suggested user list, you can go into the circles. Leo, I can't see what you're doing. So
I'm doing it. I've gone into the circles.
Okay, good. Gone to your circles area, and you can drag and drop a circle into the top half of the screen.
Or just click the share tag, which is on the circle as well.
On the circle itself, right, there's a share link. So you click share, and then you can write a comment saying, hey, this is my ThinkUp circle or my Twig circle, and then post it to your stream. And then other people can see that list of people in your circle and subscribe to it, and see the people who are in it. They can circle people selectively, or they can circle everyone in the circle. And the name of the circle is still private. And you're actually just publishing the circle as it is at the moment. Like if you change the circle afterward, your post doesn't change. So people are actually kind of forking the circle and making.
I just thought of a great game. You could create a circle and say, "Guess my label."
That would be a really good game.
Here's something that I didn't know, which probably all of you knew, but if you click Add Circle, what I was doing, which was crazy, is slowly, one by one, selecting everybody from the circle. You don't need to do that. You merely need to add to an existing circle, and then if you click the blue button, it will add everybody in this list automatically to the circle. So you don't have to do it one by one. You can do them all at once. You probably all knew that, but it took me about 4 or 5 times before I figured that sucker out.
Someone in the chat room said that it's a Follow Friday, release too.
Oh, please.
It's a really good way to suggest users
I like
to
it.
other people.
There is a limit, only 250 people per shared circle. So if you have a massive circle.
I can hear Scoble crying now.
Oh, that's how I found out. Scoble went, what? I immediately went through all of the people who were sharing photography circles and added all the photographers, and it really does make a big difference. What's happened, though, is now my Google Plus stream is very photograph heavy. I don't mind that, but it's made it really feel like Google Plus is the place where photographers go to share, but that's fine. There is a search you can do. If you find a shared circle, you'll see there's a common text that Google puts every time in the share. I can't remember exactly what it was. It's something like shared circles with you.
Shared a circle with you.
Shared a circle with you, and that's how you can find all of them. Thanks to the new search, thank goodness, finally.
So smart.
Yeah, so that's a very, very good way to find a lot of circles that people have shared.
There was a
I'm
problem
fascinated by the way
performing
with
research.
Say again?
The search. Go ahead, Gina.
Oh, sorry. No, I just got an error. There was a problem performing your search. Please try again later. That's not what you expect to hear from Google.
No.
Ever.
Wow.
Anyway.
My tool of the week is actually a product. We're getting ready for the iPhone 5 to come out. And I thought, while I still have the wherewithal before I have to buy an iPhone 5, I would try the new Samsung Galaxy S2. There are Galaxy S2s for every carrier except Verizon, which has used the Droid Bionic as its big screen Android phone. This is the Sprint version of the Galaxy S2. They call it unaccountably the Epic Touch 4G, but it is in fact a Galaxy S2. And I have to say, I love it. That big screen. This is the 4.5-inch screen. Some of them have only a 4.3-inch screen. It actually makes everything very, very legible and clear. I'm using the TouchWiz interface. I think they've actually improved TouchWiz to the point where you might even want to use it, but of course you could put other launchers on there as well. This is absolutely my favorite phone, and the image quality on here is spectacular. In fact, that's the second tool I wanted to share, which is a HD camera application that I found on Amazon's Android web store called HDR Camera Plus. And the images on this are spectacular. It takes 3 exposures, each of which is, I would guess, a couple of stops apart, and then merges them together into stunning HDR very quickly. This is an HDR I just took this morning of John Slanina at our control tower. And it just really is lovely.
I want to see it in Trey Radcliffe's hands. Fast.
Oh, no. See, this is how you can be a Trey Ratcliffe without
Trey. I can be Trey, yeah, exactly.
Because you don't have to. This company that makes this, Almalance, does, in fact, make PC software for doing HDRs. But this does it all pretty automatically. There are settings within it, and it does a spectacular job. And that complements the already excellent 8-megapixel camera in this in this phone. I really think this is a fantastic phone. I'm really excited. And I wonder when the iPhone 5 comes out next week. You know, they say that they've added voice dictation, the new assistant, which is very similar. There are really going to be two things in the new iPhone that are straight out of Android. One is this dictation, and the other, of course, is the improved notifications system that looks exactly like the Android notification system. So we'll see what else iOS 5 can bring to the table. But for right now, I really love this phone. This replaced the G2X, which I was using from LG on T-Mobile. Also, Sprint's the last company still offering an unlimited data plan.
Yay for them.
I'm sure it's not long for this world. All right, that's my tool. Danny Sullivan, anything you'd like to share as a tip, trick, tool, tip?
Yeah, this will be one of my own. You seem to like the periodic table of SEO
Loved that.
last time.
Loved
so I've got another one you might like. We did a little 3-minute video, and if you're at Search Engine Land, you go to the home page, you'll see at the top we have the little navigation links, and one of those is SEO. When you go to that, you'll see that we've added a new movie, and we worked with the people over at Common Craft. It's like 3 minutes long, and it's like, this is what SEO is, and it's not like, make sure you get your black hat stuff here, make sure you're like doing your link spamming there. It's like, this is how search engines operate. These are the kind of main factors they look for. It's designed to be the kind of thing you could show to somebody who has no technical background at all, so that they understand what's going on with all that sort of stuff. So
I love Common Craft. I think what they do is just great. They really are experts at explaining stuff.
Yeah,
so
it was a real pleasure to work with
If
them
you
on
go
that.
to searchengineland.com and you click the SEO link, you'll get, of course, this, which we talked about before, the periodic table of SEO ranking factors, and then this very clear, easy-to-understand explanation of SEO.
So the movie's up there. The other thing, by the way, I'll mention, and this isn't a new tool. You always get surprised most people don't know about it. It's called Doodle, DOODLE.com. And it is, if you've ever said, like, tried to schedule a call with more than, like, 3 people or 2 people, and you're emailing back and forth, can we go here, can we go there? You go online, you set up a times that are free for you, or times that you think everybody can do it. You can send everybody the URL. They can go through. They can add themselves. They can say, I can do it this time. Maybe I can do it that time. And it just makes getting together a snap. I wish they had a better name for the service, because I can never remember what it's called. But it was been one of those essential things I use all the time when I got to try to find a common time for everybody to meet. So
Cool.
Has nothing to do
What's
with
the
Doodle.
URL?
Doodle.com.
Doodle.com, DOODLE.com. Yeah, I know it
Doodle's great.
doesn't really
Nothing to do with doodling.
nothing to do with doodling, but it's still a great service.
Very good, and so great to have you on the show. Danny Sullivan is at Search Engine Land. We always enjoy having you on. Thank you for being
It's
here.
great to be here.
By the way, people were asking, it's HDR Camera Plus. There are a number of very similar programs, unfortunately, in the Android marketplace. This is the one. It's from a company called Almalence, and it's the plus, the symbol, not the PLUS on here. $2.99. That's the program I was recommending. It's easily the best HDR program I've used.
And Leo, by the way, did you get Apple to finally let you go to the thing? I saw you.
No.
Really? I thought it was crazy, because we don't hear from them either. But I kind of thought that'd be all right for me. I assumed you'd have been there, that you're like on the list. So.
You know, in some ways, what he's talking about is the fact that ever since I streamed Steve Jobs' iPad announcement with my my laptop pointed at Steve, I've not been. I don't know if it's related. They never said anything. They never called me. They never talked to me. But I would suspect it's related. I haven't been invited since to Apple events. And you know, to be honest, in some ways, I kind of like it, because then I could say, "See, I'm independent.
Yeah.
I'm not. They don't give me nothing." But I feel bad for our audience. We do cover all of those events, and we will, in fact, be covering Apple's October 4th announcement live. And we have plenty of people inside and outside the event. You can't really cover it from inside the event. You kind of do the best job of covering it outside, watching all the live blogs. My real request to Apple, perhaps poorly couched, was, would you please stream the damn thing so that we can all watch it together? That's what I would like. But...
Yeah, I wish Amazon had done that as well today.
yeah, stream these. Thank you very much. How'd you find that?
Just did a Google search.
Anyway, I don't care. I don't want to go, so don't try to get me in there. I really just wish Apple would stream it, because we actually do better coverage sitting here in our studios with correspondents out there and able to talk to people. That's what we did today with Amazon. That's what we did with F8 last week, and it's what we'll be doing October 4th starting at 10 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time at TWiT.tv on October 4th, Tuesday. It will be a lead-in, of course, for Mac Break Weekly. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff Jarvis's new book, available everywhere. Better.
And thank you, Twiggers, for buying it. I'm very grateful when I see the tweets and the G pluses, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you. And I want to hear what you think of it.
Yeah, and Eileen, let's book Jeff into Triangulation so we can sit down and spend an hour talking about this. It's a very important issue, and obviously you get a lot out of that when we talk on the show, but I'd like to get more. And then Gina Trapani of smarterware.org. We don't see you, but we know you're there. We love
The disembodied
you.
voice. Great show today.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. We do this show on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 2000 UTC at twit.tv. Tune in live if you will, but if you can't, don't forget we record audio and video and make it available to you almost immediately after the show on twit.tv. Subscribe, and you'll make sure you don't miss an episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on This Week in Google and Facebook and Amazon.